Thursday, the 28th of March. Welcome everyone to your Frontier Opening Bell, where tiptoeing towards the end of the week. Of course, you've got the biggest news yesterday from the U.S. Central Bank, the Fed, holding interest rate unchanged at previous levels. Fed fund rate holding between 4.25% and 4.5%. The U.S. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell says the economy is still on track. That's the U.S. economy, but just hinted that inflation remains a concern for the FOMC. Decision was overwhelming majority in taking the decision to hold the Fed fund rate unchanged at the current level, and of course the slowing down in some of the securities program that the Fed is also are selling on a monthly basis, taking that down from $25 billion to $5 billion. All of that, of course, taking the market, equities market back into some positive reading. But what we saw Wednesday across the continent in Africa was a big jump from South Africa. And I'm just going to go there first. The GSE was strong yesterday, led by resources, and that was quite big. The resources pushed the GSE to 1.41% to a record 90,149 for the all-share index. That was marked yesterday because the basic materials, the precious metals, and the mining segment of the market finished up very strongly. The rand, however, fell around 1817 Wednesday close to the US dollar, as we saw the dollar index also finishing around 8 p.m. Nigerian time around 103.64 against its major peers. The rest of the continent, what you see on the screen, Nigeria was down by 0.44%. The banking sector, the insurance also fell on Wednesday. The PRVM took a deep dive of 1.04%. The Egyptian market was down by roughly 1%. The Nairobi market up by 0.27%, 130.25. We saw some earnings reactions there in the Nairobi market. And that just took me to the East and Central Africa. The headline, Standard Chartered, one of the biggest banks in Kenya, reporting a dividend jump 55.07%. Dividend for full year 2024 will be 45 shillings per share. That took the stock of Standard Chartered up roughly 13% on Wednesday's trading day. And I mentioned earlier, markets are now calm after the U.S. Fed told, watching how things will go down the rest of the year. The impact of the expected consequences, both expected and unexpected consequences of President Trump's tariff tantrums around the world. Of course, the Kenya is also stopping the 25% tax on transformers imports because of the high cost of that on electricity. In Rwanda, the economy was up 8.9%, roughly 9% for 2024. But not so much good news for President Kagame's economy because sanctions from the European Union beginning to hurt the country's refined gold export. In the meantime, some good news because Qatar Airways is resuming the Doha-Kigali non-stop flights that will be effective the 14th of May, while Ethiopian Airlines and Etihad says they've signed a new agreement that will help them to boost connectivity between the two airlines for Asia, Middle East, as well as Africa. Some good news, some not so good. Take everything along as you go to your fourth trading day of the week. Let me move on to West Africa. And then that is where Nigeria's yield surged yesterday, averaged about 1% across the three tenured government treasuries that the central bank placed on the market for investment and now on yield. The political crisis in Nigeria's oil-rich river state, down south Nigeria, south is a major concern for the country's oil output and revenue that is based on oil production. $75 per barrel is what Nigeria predicated its 2025 earnings. The 2025 appropriations was coming around the mid-year. Now, that's been, we said, the crisis. Dangote Refinery issued a major statement yesterday saying that it's going to stop. They're stopping or temporarily suspending the sale of refined products locally in local currency because there's a mismatch between paying for crude imports in dollar terms and, again, the whole naira for crude deal between the State Oil Corporation, the NNPC, and Dangote refineries hit a brick wall. So that is the conundrum we face right now. Nigeria is suspecting things to get a little bit tougher. Then Dangote is selling petrol around 850 naira in Nigeria, which of course perhaps does not truly reflect the exchange rate of the country, now around 1,500 to the US dollar. Neighboring Cameroon says it's planning to boost cement output to 12.7 million metric tons with the new plants that's coming on board. In West Africa, still the Côte d'Ivoire is looking, says it's raising cocoa farm gate price by 11%. That's going to be good news for local farmers, while Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso says they've exited the international group of countries that speaks French. What language will go next? It's anyone's guess. Let's move on. Take it down to Southern Africa. Today is the D-Day for Leseja Kekyango and the rest of his team on the NPC. The expectation is another rate hold on the repo by South Africa's central bank. Keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, it's made some pretty bad news for South Africa's bond being dumped like hot potato by some of the world's biggest banks, JPM, that's Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, and others. 16.1 billion rand was the latest figure we had, because of course the sour relation between Pretoria and Washington since the incoming of President Donald Trump. Google, however, has launched a new 2.5 billion rand cloud project in South Africa, the biggest in that country so far. Of course, there's a whole lot more to digest within the Southern African markets, but just take that up to North Africa, just to sum up the show this morning. Egypt and in India looking at stronger and a bigger trade relations. 12 billion US dollars is the target over the next 5 years. However, that will take the current trade relations between the two countries from the current 4.2 billion US dollars. Now, Egyptian banks are reporting a robust 2024 full year profits totaling about 8.8 billion Egyptian pounds. That's according to latest data from the filings that we've seen so far with the authorities. And Morocco's gotten an approval from the IMF board for $496 million because of the resilience of the North African economy. And finally, Libya and Indonesia say they're strengthening tourism ties with a new deal on halal travel. That's going to help folks who want to travel using the Islamic finance window. And those are some of the headlines as we get today's trading day up and running on Frontier Africa Reports. You have a great Thursday, everyone, and see you back Friday for a TGIF on FOB.